Good afternoon, class. I would like to go ahead and get you started by having you log into Pear Deck, and then here is our account. So you would go ahead and log on, and the link has been shared with you in chat so that you can see it. Okay. So once everyone is logged in, we can go ahead and get started with our lesson. At this point, I would go ahead and give the students who would be using the link to the chat in order to sign in, and then they'd also be able to access any kind of questions that I have as we go through the lesson. So we would have this here and available to them. All right, so welcome, and we're going to go ahead. Our benchmark today is science. So we're going to be doing a middle school lesson on genes and alleles. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. All right, so we're going to be doing genetics and adaptations. You're going to be asked several questions during the process. So this should be fairly straightforward for you. And I do encourage all kinds of questions if you have them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start our lesson here with our guided notes. So you should have the guided notes that we went over with our last class. Our focus today is going to be Mendel's genetics. We're going to talk about what an allele is, the variation of a gene. So when we do have genes, we have variations of them. So we have our recessive and we have our dominant. So our dominant form of the gene is the one that's going to be expressed with a capital letter, such as an A or a P, and they are the ones that appear. So for example, if we say one allele is dominant over the other, this may be the fact that if someone has brown eyes, the brown gene allele would be dominant over the recessive version. So then the recessive version would have the lowercase expression. So it could be a lowercase p or a lowercase a, depending on what we choose to use it for. Okay, so next we create what's called a Punnett square. A Punnett square is a way to show genes being expressed. So in the Punnett square, we would have the genotype or the genetic expression of the gene. So the genotype would be the letters that the parent has. So the parent's alleles are shown on the left and on the top. So if we had the white flower, would have two little p's, and then we have a purple flower would have a big P and big P. So the letters are the genotype and the trait is the phenotype, the purple or the white being the phenotype. Inside each of the boxes, we would show the big P coming here and the little p going, the little p there, the big P here, and this is the genotype of our first offspring. Now we can see for all four of these genotypes that they all have a big P and a little p. So because the big P is the dominant trait, all four flowers are going to be purple. Okay, so the only chance these offspring have of coloration would be to be purple. Okay, this is what we call the F1 generation. Now, what we know of these alleles, these are called alleles. So we have a dominant allele and a recessive allele, the big P being the dominant, the little p being recessive in our first F1 generation. Okay, now if we were to cross those offspring and have what we call the second generation, we would cross two heterozygotes to have a different chance in offspring. So this one with two dominant alleles would have the purple phenotype. This one with a dominant and a recessive allele would have the dominant phenotype. Dominant and recessive, dominant phenotype. Two homozygous recessive would have the white phenotype. Now we can see this here from our outcomes. Okay, so what would be the chance of having a offspring with white flowers? we would say that it's a 1 in 4 chance. So there's a 1/4 chance that we're going to have homozygous recessive offspring. Now, we would have our parents would be the purple plant is homozygous dominant. So he would be big P, big P. And the white plant, we don't have, okay, we don't have the white plant as our parent here. So if we have a homozygous and a heterozygous, we would have different qualifications going on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our next slide. Okay, so you're going to be answering this question. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and put in an answer to this. You're going to be choosing the correct option on the Pear Deck slide that you have. So in pea plants, both big P, and big P, little p yield purple flowers. That means that the pea plants can have the same blank, but different blank. Okay, so take a minute to answer the question. And for those of you watching, this is the point when the students would be answering the question. So this is the point where the students would step in and choose from their device the correct answer. I could take a poll, and then we would see who has the correct answer. And if I need to reflect and go back and rehash some of the information that was given. Okay, next you have another response to choose. In the Punnett square below, what belongs in the missing square? Okay, now I can click show responses and I can show what the kids are putting here. Okay, all right. Okay, and then at the end of the lesson, I would do a wrap up going over the genetics of Punnett squares, clearing up any misconceptions the students would have, and then going over more questions. All right, this is a shortened version of a lesson I would teach, and I hope this is helpful.